Mm-hmm.
Um, that's connected to my stamps.com thing, printer and all that is a PC. All my other computers are Macs. And I forgot how fun it is to work on PCs that every other day decide
Uh-huh.
to automatically update. Uh,
Yeah.
what's going on? What's going on here? Does it do it again? I, I, I
Your
don't.
it's
I
pl-
Yep.
yours. Oh yeah.
Can't find where it's at to tell it to stop making noise. This is the popped out chat. Is it what's happening?
Did it go away?
No, it's
No,
here.
no, no, no.
I can see the chat, but I can't see the video, which is where. There it is. There we go. Here we go. Look at that. Got it.
Great.
And I can pop out the chat here. Pop out chat. Yeah, I swear every other day I go on there to print off postage to mail something, and the computer has updated, and I got to spend 10 minutes for it rebooting.
Yeah.
And I remember why I don't like PCs.
Yeah.
What's up, YouTube people? Thanks, guys, for all being here.
Yeah.
Janet and I worked out some kinks.
Mm-hmm.
Knocked the cobwebs off during the
Yeah.
during our Patreon session before this. And we talk about here why people are starting to come in. A few other updates we just didn't get to because we tried to keep it short. Nope, it is Zach's anniversary. Zach and Michelle, it is their 14th anniversary. They've been together for 19 years. And so Zach decided selfishly to spend the night with his wife rather than with me and Janet.
It's a
Which I
beautiful
think
thing.
it's selfish.
Uh-huh.
Things we didn't get to. We should start. So you had your trip to Atlanta. I had Quentin graduated. It was, man, I tell you what, you see like on TV or like people on social media or people they're just like, oh, where's the time go? There's so little.
Yeah.
I did not expect at all the emotional reaction that I had, like going into the stadium and like they all started walking with their cap and gowns. It was just like immediate. What, like I remember like watching him play Pee Wee football on that field when he was 5 years old, and now he's coming
I
out graduating.
can't believe you thought you weren't going to get emotional. You could
I
have
thought
called me and said, "Hey, quick question. I don't think I'm going to get emotional, but
What
will
do you
I?" And I
think?
would have said,
Yeah.
100% yes.
Yeah. Like, yep. And I definitely was. I was just
Oh,
like, oh, and little Bella, she's 17.
yeah.
Bella's sitting next to me. I'm just like, she's like, oh, are you crying? I'm like, this is harder than this is really emotional. And
Yeah.
of course Becky's like, ah, and Bella's like, oh.
I love that you can boil down your family's reactions to you in a series of just groans and
Yeah.
coos.
Yeah. Becky's very good about this look. Are you gonna cry?
Wait, so how was the party? The
Party
rough hosted party.
it went really well. So it went super well. So we sat out in our barn and we had all the drinks. We got Chipotle catered in, and it was a great party all night. And then I set up
Nice.
way in the back of our property a huge bonfire for Quentin and his friends to.
Nowhere near the poo.
Uh, well, it was near it, but they said they could smell it. Not far from the poo. But we set up the big bonfire back there and set up chairs. So he was real excited. Oh, thank you, Caroline, for the super chat.
Oh, Caroline.
Well, that's for Zach.
Of course, that has to go straight to Zach. So,
We're taking that $5. Yeah, so it was just fun. It's fun to see him like with all of his friends, and like they had like a party at our house, and of course, we try to. I always say, like, being a parent. Kelly, thank you so much. And by the way, both of those two that just gave us the super chats are two of the people that are also like working their fingers to the bones right now as part of the team,
oh,
setting ad
dude.
markers for us.
Oh,
Yeah,
gals.
both of them.
You're the
Thank you,
best.
guys. Yeah, it was just like, they've never had like parties here, but as a parent, it's always so hard because like I pulled Quentin aside, and like Quentin and I have a really good like open relationship. I'm like, listen to me. I don't want any drinking. I don't
Yeah.
want any drinking back there. No one drinks. He's like, okay, Dad. And I said, rule number 2, which is more important than rule number 1. If anybody drinks, they don't leave this fucking house. Got it?
Yeah.
And he's like, got it. Yeah,
Right.
I got, but it's so hard for as a parent because it's like the second thing pretty much is me saying it's cool if you guys drink.
Right.
But like I don't ever want to be, and it's not how I feel about it, but I don't
Right.
ever want to be
He
the
knows
parent
that.
that's like, I'm so afraid that dad will find out that I
Yes.
drank that I'm gonna drive or I'm gonna do
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um and we took precautionary measures. So first of all, they had to go past us. All the kids had to go past us to get back there. So we knew like they can't smuggle in cases of beer.
Yes.
When the party was over, we had a cooler for adult beverages. We had a cooler full of like seltzers and stuff. I sent that all home with his mom.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just gone. And then we had a keg, which me and my friends did a good number on.
I bet you did.
Yeah, we put
How
a hurting
brave.
on that. Yeah, we tried to keep it going until it was gone. Couldn't get there. But when we went in for the night, I like took the tap off the keg, like so like they can't access any of our alcohol.
Smart.
Now, in the morning, I woke up to 15 kids sleeping in my basement. And when I went out and cleaned up around, and they did, it was so like they folded up the chairs when they left everything back there because it's way back there. Because I let
Yeah.
them use the side by side because like for girls, I had to go to the bathroom and stuff to like come back and forth to the house and use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Um, but they've like folded everything up. They picked up their trash, but like I did find like in the cooler there was a 2 liter of cream soda and some Solo cups. I'm pretty sure they weren't drinking cream soda. Probably some silly
Hmm.
drink that they were all putting together. But
Ew. I gotta be honest with you. Mixing cream soda with booze does not sound good to me.
no,
And I like cream soda.
but it for sure sounds like something kids would do.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah. They're not having Jack and Cokes back there, I don't
Yeah.
think, or
Maybe they're having Kahlua and cream soda. Whoa.
something. Bleh. But yeah, so and it was and along those same lines too. Like on graduation night, Quentin asked me if he's like, can I go? Like there's some parties and stuff going on. And I was so, and a lot of this is my years of being a firefighter too. Like I've been out to these car accidents on graduation night, and it's the most
Ooh.
devastating thing in the
Oh
world.
God, of course.
Same thing. I'm like,
Mm.
listen, and actually with that one, I didn't even do the don't drink. I said, listen, if you're drinking, you don't drive. You can call me. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I
Yes.
will come get you. You can
Yeah.
stay wherever you're at. Do not drive. You will not be. If you call me at 4 in the morning and say, Dad, I'm drunk and I need a ride home, you're not in trouble. And it was like all
Yeah.
night at like 10 o'clock. I'm like, you good? Yep. And I said, just keep me posted. And at like midnight, he's like, okay, we're at so-and-so's house. I think we're going to stay here for the night. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, I think I'm going to spend the night here. I'm like, that's fine. He said, but I may come home. I'm like, listen, again, if you're drinking, it was like all like I was like 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, just go to bed, ringers on, last reminder.
Yeah.
If you need a ride, call me. I'll
Yeah.
come get you. But we
That's
navigated
good
through the whole
dadding.
thing without any tragedy. Everybody had a good time, had the party. Everything was a lot of fun. Somebody else said something in the chat that was also that Friday night right after the graduation, Zach and I had our comedy set.
Yeah. Oh my God, so much happened last week.
Oh, it was a lot.
Oy.
It sucked. It was terrible. Uh,
Wait, really?
well, uh, so Zach's cousin's a comic,
Uh-huh.
and he knows of this club. He's never been
Yeah.
there, and he had told us like the day before we were talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, it's a nice club, but they just can't get anybody through. It's in a weird spot. It's in Portage, Indiana, which is like an hour east of Chicago.
Mm.
There's nothing there or no reason for people to be there."
Okay.
And like people aren't going to come from Chicago to go there because there's a good
Right.
comedy scene in Chicago.
Right.
And we're like, well, whatever, we'll go do it. So we show up, and there was maybe 20 people, which is the first time I've ever performed in a club. So some of the guys are like, you get 20 people in a club, that's not bad.
Yeah.
The room is set up for about 200. It's a
Oh, okay.
huge room,
Yeah.
and it was like 20 people. Pick your chair, and of course nobody wants to be close to the stage, so there's like
Right.
people in little pods way
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
from the stage. So like you would tell your jokes and people would laugh, but you almost couldn't even hear the laugh.
Yeah.
The room was so big.
Oh, sure.
It was what could only be described as awkward for me, especially for me, because my act is so much dependent upon like interactions with crowd and
Yeah.
reaction from the crowd, and like you
Yeah.
couldn't hear. I like a few people were. It went fine, but for me, it was like this is just awkward. I'm like talking to people that aren't talking back to me is what it felt like.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. What do you do in that situation? I guess I've never had that conversation with like a comic who does crowd work. Like, what do you have fallbacks?
Yeah. So the thing about mine is like it's not really crowd work. Like it's not crowd work the way most people think of crowd work. It's just a lot of like my jokes are stories, but like there's no end to the sentence.
Right.
I'll just be like, well, I'm, so that, so then here comes Parker and like I let the audience get there and they start
Uh-huh.
laughing. I'm like, exactly, e- except for when, there's two people that are like, yeah, hee hee ha. I'm like, exactly, you guys get it, right? And then it's it was like so awkward.
Yeah.
I won't use
Yeah.
the phrase here live, but I don't know if you remember the phrase that I continued to use um, when we were in Palm Springs together about when I was feeling awkward. It's like crawling inside. Remember
Yeah.
that? That's
Yes.
how it felt. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that it wasn't
Yeah. It
the
didn't go
perfect
bad. It just
night, but
wasn't
yeah.
like
It's
I
hard
kind
when
I
there's not a lot of people. I mean, I've
yeah.
definitely performed in front of no one, so
Yeah.
I hear you.
It's the word. And the headliner, I was the feature, and then the headliner up after me. She was like, "Oh, well, I guess they paid me to do 40 minutes in front of the 12 of you, so here we go."
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a super chat from Casey Williams. Thanks,
Casey,
Casey, so
Casey's
much.
Casey's got a strong, coming in hot. Guy in the red truck did it. His accomplice hid in the desert.
That's good. Casey, I would love to know more. Like,
Yeah.
is this a theory, or do you feel like you have some inside information there? Um, but I don't think it's a terrible theory.
This
But
is Casey. You're awesome for that large donation and for having a strong and firm theory.
yeah, I dig it. I'm
I
so
want to know
excited
more
for this
too.
week's episode. So I'm going to do. I'm sorry. I'm so out of sorts because this whole like feed transfer has been such a nightmare.
Yeah.
That like I need to like get down tomorrow and write. But like this episode I'm doing this week is going to be the one that is here's everything summed up in one episode. Here's a thing that you can share if somebody's like, I want you to know about this
Oh,
Pinyon Pines case. It's a tragedy. Here's 40 minutes to listen to why. So
great.
for people to understand it. So
That's
I'm
very
pretty excited
exciting.
to
That's
sum
very, very exciting.
sum that up, and I'll be sure to talk about the red truck and that, Casey. And again, thank you very much for the
Casey
super
says it's
chat.
a theory. And again, thank you not just for the theory, Casey, but for supporting the show. That's
Yes,
very,
very
very
much so.
wonderful.
And then oh yeah, so Bella, I've complained before that my daughter has hit probably I think 4 home runs this season. I rarely miss an inning of her softball.
Yeah,
The only time I do is if it's like Parker has something going on or Quentin has something going on somewhere else and we have to divide and
sure.
conquer. I have never in her softball career seen her hit a home run. She always does it when I'm not there.
Mm,
And that video that I sent you. So here I am. I'm saying it's a district tournament. So it's like the big end of the year tournament to move on to regionals. Actually, this one was to move on into the semifinals of the districts. And we're down by a run. And Bella, she pitched an awesome game. Like she had like 9 strikeouts. It's third place 7 inning
amazing.
games. Great game. She comes up with the bases loaded, and she hit a foul ball. And something in me, I have filmed to this point right now precisely one pitch to my daughter.
Uh-huh.
One.
Uh-huh.
Something about she swung and hit that foul ball, and I said, holy shit, she's gonna fucking drill one. And I got my phone out because I never do that because I used to always like take a lot of pictures and do stuff, but then I'm like, but then I'm not paying attention to the game, so I
Totally.
just
Totally.
don't. And you know my feeling about social media, like who gives a shit?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
so, but I was like, I just got a feeling. 'Cause even Becky's like, "What are you
Oh,
doing?" I'm like, "I
oh
just got
my
a feeling."
God.
Turn my phone on, like just barely in enough time, and like put it up to the fence, hit record on the video, and she hit a fucking grand slam.
Smacks it.
Yeah, crushed the ball.
What a badass.
Yeah, she's a
Oh my
badass.
God. I love that your spidey senses were like, might want to shoot. I mean, that's in and of itself is just great part of the story.
Yeah, it was so good. Like Becky's like, I can't. She goes, "Did you film that?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Why were you? How did you? Why?" I'm like, "I don't know. I had a hunch. I was just like, I want to
I
get
love
this."
it.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love it.
So yeah, within 2 days of
Ah,
each other, or a few days of each other, I got to watch my son graduate and got to watch my daughter hit a grand slam, and they won the game. Unfortunately, they lost the next game, but yeah. So that game they ended up winning 7-6, and she had 6 RBIs, 4
come
from
on.
that, and then and she scored the 7th run. She scored, like she was the one
That's
that scored the run.
killer.
She won
That's so
MVP
great.
from her team. She was voted MVP for the game.
That's so great. And I could not have been more like just delighted that you sent me that video that you were like, I just got to brag for a second. I'm like, yes,
I was
please do.
I was just sitting
Always.
there. I was thinking about you because we hadn't talked for a little while, and I was like, because I did post that, and I rarely post stuff, and
I would
I
never have
posted.
seen it.
Yep,
So
and I
I'm
was like,
so glad.
I'm like, I know you don't do social media, but I want you to see that my daughter
Oh,
is a badass, and she just smashed a grand slam to win the
oh,
game.
so great.
And
So,
now
so
I'm
great.
equally as excited that softball season is over,
Yeah.
graduation season is over,
Yeah.
and I
The
can.
transfer is happening. God, a lot happened in 1 week. That is
Oh,
just too, some might say too much. Some might say that was too much for any
it was a
one
lot.
person to
It was,
tackle in 1 week.
as I said in our pre-show, it was the right move taking that week off because everything was able to get accomplished, and the fee transfer did not go as it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But now here we are. We're recording this, drops on Friday.
Right.
Everything's smooth and up and running, and thanks to our team of ad marker and ad rippers, we are
Oh,
actually
thanks, y'all.
the episodes are getting posted, and we're actually making money off the ads on those episodes now, which is great.
Great. Love to hear it.
Yep. And real quick before we get started, two things. One, I want to hear about your trip to Atlanta because you were there for a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but two real quick. Did I hear? Did the writers reach an agreement, or was that
No,
the
that's the
directors did?
directors. The
Are you
Directors
guys?
Guild. Yeah, the Directors Guild reached an agreement, which was a little surprising to me. But the writers are absolutely no, they are absolutely still on strike. And SAG, AFTRA authorized the actors union authorized, voted and authorized overwhelmingly authorized a strike as well. And so basically, the Producers Guild and SAG-AFTRA have until the end of June to come up with an agreement that they can both get on board for, or SAG-AFTRA goes on strike as well. So they'll be right there side by side with the writers, because I guarantee you,
Yeah.
I seriously doubt that anything's going to happen for the writers by the end of June. So
So not making any progress.
I mean, I'm not hearing anything about it except for just the various ways that the writers are doing a frankly kick-ass job of staying in the media, finding
Yeah.
new ways to like reach people to help them understand and like compare the amount of money that the studio, all of that kind of stuff. They're really
I
doing
love
well.
that, like all the podcasts that I'm like watching, that I watch or listen to, like they're all talking, like Jimmy Pardo's podcast, like they're always talking about like, oh, I was out picketing yesterday, I'm doing
Yeah.
this, I was listening to the Always Sunny podcast, and they're all like taking their shifts, going out, like it's cool to see everybody kind of united
Yeah.
in doing that. Also three things, because the other thing I just want to say that we started watching Platonic, fucking love it.
It's so
Uh
good, isn't it? I mean,
it's really
the
good.
the story and the fam it's just so good.
Yeah, I love it. And Seth Rogen is
He's so good.
his
But Rose
character is great.
Byrne, she
Yeah,
is getting to be funny in a way that like I don't feel she often gets to be funny. She's a
yeah,
brilliant dramatic actress and she does comedy, but she's often this like the less funny person in a comedy. And
yeah,
I feel like she's such a tour de force in this. Like everything she does makes me laugh. And yet it still feels very like I feel her heart in it?
yeah. We're loving it. Becky's in love with it. I'm in love with it. And in episode 3, we got to meet your character, and I
Ridiculous.
love your character. So now, are you in? Because I saw you weren't in episode 4. Do you come back?
No, I think I'm back in episode 5.
Okay. Are you
Yeah,
like
which I
regularly
think
through?
dropped. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in like 5, 6, and 9, something like that.
So your character does come back because
Yeah,
that's
definitely. Oh, she definitely comes back.
yeah. I'm super
She comes
excited
back
about
with a
it.
vengeance towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, so check out Platonic on Apple. Somebody mentioned they sent emails about the ad marker stuff. I'll talk about that when we start the show back up, so I'm gonna do that twice. And then real quick, so Atlanta was it could have been just a con, right? Because you were there for like a whole week.
It was a con, and then I stayed there for a couple of things, including spending some time and working on some stuff with my friend Mike, who is I can't remember if I brought him up before, but he is Puddle's Pity Party, which is this amazing performer who's also a giant clown, but not in a scary clown kind of way.
Yeah,
There's
all
no way to
clowns are
describe it
scary.
really. There's definitely a
Yeah,
lot of stuff out there on social media and stuff that you can see, but he has like his voice is like it reminds me of Tom Jones' voice. Like it's like one of the best voices I've ever heard in my life. But then you hearing it out of this almost 7 foot gentle guy who's wearing like a
can't
white
hear
clown suit.
Tom Jones without thinking of John Mulaney's "What's New Pussycat" story.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a
Are
good
you
point.
familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know that my son did that? Uh, so back, oh, I should say too, Mike was at the party, hung out with Mike all night. Mike ended up
Oh.
spending the night here. The end of the night was me, Becky, and it was like the old days. Everybody was gone. Me,
Oh,
Becky, and Mike sitting up on our deck,
oh
listening to the
man,
kids chanting and dancing and singing at the party down there. So it was really good to,
fabulous.
really good to see Mike. And I
Love that
don't,
Mike Bussing.
did I mention that that him and his wife are starting a new adventure? I don't know if I did mention that on the show.
Is that a
I did.
what do you mean by that?
So they were talking a while ago, like his wife really wanted to open a dog kennel. She went to school
Oh, okay, yeah.
for like like horse boarding, equestrian stuff.
Uh-huh.
And she, she doesn't work in that industry. And Mike had said when he started the electrician job, he's like, I want to give this a year and see if I like it and what I want to do. And he was like, yeah, I don't know what's for me. And then they like found they've been looking all over the country for 2 years now for the right like house with dog kennel or dog kennel business.
Mm-hmm.
And on the unfortunately it's on the other side of the state. It's like a 5-hour drive from here.
Yep.
But they found a beautiful home with a beautiful kennel over on the east side of the state, and
Okay.
they've got their house under contract, and they've got that under contract, and they're going to be moving and running this, and it's like turnkey. Like the people are, I think they're retiring or something, but like
Mm-hmm.
they're buying the the house and the kennel and the name and
Great.
the client list and everything, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
starting.
Turnkey is right. All right.
Yeah,
Wow,
and
that's exciting.
he's super
Oh, but it's
super
gonna be so
duper
far
excited about it.
away.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that. We don't see each other that much now, and he lives 45 minutes away.
Oh,
So
fair
now
enough.
we have to make an effort
Fair enough. Yeah.
effort to see each other. But we still have he'll still come over for deer camp and stuff. And where he's moving to is one of the areas that I go with my dog Mac and go bird hunting in the fall a lot. So I'll be shacking up at Mike's house in the fall when I go for
Nice.
the bird
Love to
hunting.
hear it.
Yep. Oh, there he is. He's here. Right there he is. Merb Gaming. That's Mike. He says, "I'm here,
What?
Bobby."
Mike,
Mike,
what are
what's
you
up,
doing
buddy?
here?
I
Hi,
want
friend.
to hug him. I don't know what to do.
Oh my God. What
He's
the?
this little sleeper.
What are the
Everybody say
chances?
hi to Mike. He's in the chat.
Oh yeah, Puddles was on America's Got Talent. Mike Bussing, hello, friend. Congratulations on your new adventure. And if I may,
Yep, that's your new life, buddy.
Yeah.
All day. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad that he's there. It must be very boring at the buzzing household right now. I'm excited to jump on the old YouTube live.
I'm sure he's been following this case to the letter and is going to have a lot of contributions for that follow-up portion.
Yeah, he just waited for that one
You know
moment.
what? Let's let him edit it for old time's sake. Come on,
Mike,
Kelly won't
edit this one.
mind.
That's fine, Mike. You're not doing nothing.
He loves editing.
Yep. So anyway, that's exciting. Last thing, Kitten Watch. We've got one tabby that's not spoken for.
One remaining tabby. Okay.
Yeah, we've got
not Lucky. Someone took Lucky.
I don't know because I don't know which one's the boy and which one's the girl.
Oh, okay.
That is the ex-wife's job. She comes over and checks under their skirts to find out who's who.
Okay.
But she's taking the tortoiseshell one, and then there's both the black one. If I had a house where I could have a cat, one of those black cats would be my cat. It is the sweet. They're scattered, always hidden all over my garage. As soon as it hears footsteps, that one black one comes running over, and it's taken to now rolling onto its back. So I'll just rub its belly.
Oh my!
It's the cutest thing ever.
I want that cat. Oh, well, I want you to have that cat. I guess if it loves you so much.
Can't do it. It'd have to live outside. The dogs would get at it. Mike says, "So random. I strolled in, guys. Thanks for all the thanks and miss you guys. We of course miss you too, Mike.
You bet.
Haven't seen Mike since he fell asleep in Parker's bed on last Sunday.
And I tucked him in. A little kiss on the forehead.
Yeah. It was a good time. We used to, back in the day, we used to always, we called it NBI date night. Me, Becky, and Mike would always go out into town on the weekend.
Love it.
So we had our little NBI date night on Friday. So
that's good stuff.
With that said, I guess we can start the show. I'll bring us back in after your beautiful musical interlude, and because I got a little housekeeping to do, and then we'll get right into it. Also, I should point out, I don't remember the episode at all, so we'll see how this goes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Let me click us back in for Kelly, unless Mike wants to. Yeah, no. And Devin wants me to record the black cat showing its belly to me.
Yes.
I'll see what I can
Heck
do.
Yes.
All right, we're back after that beautiful musical break, courtesy of Janet, and we're going to have to figure out what to do about that
Yeah.
situation.
And if you heard me do that and felt it was inappropriate and you feel like posting on Facebook about it, please don't.
Because she will read it and she'll be very
Please
upset
don't.
about
I
what
have
you posted.
feelings and they
Yeah,
get hurt.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna have Shane put together like a short little music bump that I can just plug in there in the follow
Great.
ups
Feel free
because
to send him what I just did for reference.
for reference,
I'm
right?
sure it'll
Just
be
like
really
that.
helpful.
The thing is, we did 5 seasons, and I know that because we were doing the ad marker stuff. We did 5 seasons without that. It was when we went to Wondery during season 6 when they started this like intro then ad break thing, and now I don't
Hmm.
remember how to do it
Hmm.
without that.
That's what the musical segue's for. It's fine.
Yeah,
That's going to be
perfect.
great.
Yeah, and you nailed it. You really did.
Uh-huh.
I do want to just a little bit of housekeeping up front as we kind of get our sea legs back under us. That's a thing that you do in podcasting. You get your sea legs under you.
You bet.
I want to throw a big shout out to Kristen, Caroline, Sarah, Jessica, Teresa, Erica, Rachel, and Kelly. They are currently the team that is right now working tirelessly to place ad markers and do ad. And we've had a few Zooms with some training, and they realize what, especially the old episodes, are a pain in the
Oh,
butt because
team,
yeah,
we
they got to
love
find
you.
all the old ads and highlight those, and then
Oh,
they got to find spots for the new ads. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, as I've told you guys in person, and I want to say it again on the podcast. Like, you guys are lifesavers. Like, they've seen how long. I mean, it takes 5-10 minutes to do an episode, and there's
oh
773
God.
episodes, I think. So there's just no way that I could
Yeah.
do it. But the 8 of them are like breaking out. See, like, I know they've got season 12 and season 10 done already. I think they were going to be working
Whew.
on season 5 now.
Heroes.
Um, Also, I want to point out, I know, and there's a few people even in the YouTube chat, like a lot of people have like emailed and haven't heard back. We're going to see if we need to add more people. The tricky part was, so first, I was like, if anybody wants to volunteer to help, thinking, I don't know why I thought this, that no one's going to want to do this shitty job. And I sometimes forget how freaking amazing all of you are.
Yeah.
Hundreds,
Oh,
I mean, my
oh,
that email inbox is nothing but, yeah. I told people put ad markers in the subject line. It's just pages and pages
oh,
and pages and pages and pages of it. So
oh.
obviously which, from the bottom of my heart, I love all you guys so much. It's so kind of so many of you. And then I was like, well, I'll just start grabbing as the order they came in. We'll start grabbing people. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute, I have to give whoever is doing this access to the back end of the podcast, um, which is terrifying to let
Sure.
people, because like someone could go in
Understood.
and literally delete the podcast. They could put an ad
Yeah.
marker every 10 seconds. There's so many ways that the podcast could be sabotaged.
Yeah.
And I know there are people out there that would love to do that. So then I put a
Ugh.
post up that said, somehow I got to verify, send me like a picture ID and your Facebook handle so we can, do a little bit of background checking. And then Janet, 50 people
Mm.
did that, like, on
Ugh.
top of that. And so if you're one of those people and you're wondering, like, I did everything and why haven't it's simply because, like, we started going through like the first clump of them, and we're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I think eight's a manageable number to start with. We'll start that. And because we went through all the background checking and vetting and everything, and got them going. We may be adding to that team more as but please understand that, like, if we haven't like gotten back to you and said you want it's not at all because we don't like you or didn't want you. It's just a sheer mass number of people that are doing it. But I do want every single one of you guys to know that it means the world to me that so many of you were willing to and are willing to jump in and do what is a Kelly, Rachel, Erica, Teresa, Jessica, Sarah, Caroline, and Kristen can tell you is a terrible job. It's the
Oh
worst job
God.
ever.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a rough job to do. But again, thank you all so much. And if you've sent those emails in with like your verification stuff, we may still, in a week, we may, I'm kind of letting the team, now that they've all got got everything figured out, letting them kind of just run things and go through and do it. And if they come to me and say, hey, we could use a couple more people, then we'll go to the list and grab a couple more people, and we'll just keep building on it that way.
Awesome.
Um, and with
Oh.
that said, I think that's all the housekeeping that I can remember off the top of my head. Janet and I certainly are a little well, I can say speak for myself, a little bit out of sorts because I've been doing everything but making a podcast for the last 2 weeks, and now we're trying to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
And also, I
Even
don't
as I leave tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock for Pennsylvania.
right, yeah, that's which is why we're doing this evening.
Mm-mm.
So, since it's already 9 o'clock on the East Coast,
I got a bogey gnat. This is not going to go well. I got a bogey. Repeat. I got a bogey. It's going to get right up onto my eye or up into my nose. I can see that's where we're headed.
you're gonna have a Mike Pence fly on you,
Really
just
is.
land on your hair the whole
Can't wait.
time.
Yeah. Yes.
So what did you what'd you think about the We Killed Her? It's a weird thing.
Yeah. It's definitely a head scratcher. You know, I remember in the follow-up that we did as you were getting us ready for that episode to come out, you definitely forewarned that you described it as titillating.
Yep.
I think that was a really good word for
That's
it.
the
It's
right
it's
word for it, isn't it?
intriguing, confusing, just enough information to be really interesting, but not enough information to feel confident in it meaning anything.
Yeah.
It was yeah, I don't know. Boy, and I think, you know, a lot of folks with the feedback on Facebook are, you know, kind of feeling the same way in terms of like wanting, you know this audience, you know this
Yeah.
army, they want more information, they want to help, they want to do something with it, parse it out, figure out if it's helpful, and I think everybody's just kind of like, oh, now what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when again, like I came across it months ago. And I listened to it in the order you guys heard it. So like I listened to Garrett's interview, and he was like, he told me that like 2 or 3, because I think he says like 2 or 3 days ago this call happened. And then I hear him say that they said we killed her. And I'm like, holy shit, they had her phone and said that 3 days ago. And then we hear Bob Shelley's interview, and he says a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then we look at the phone records, and it looks like the call was on the 5th. But before we dig into more, I'm sure there are questions about that, so we better get right into those questions.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a question that was asked in various forms by a bunch of different people, wanting to just really verify, like, do we have any more information? It definitively was a call on, what did you say, September 5th? Am I
Yes.
making that up?
Yep.
And no other indication of anything afterwards, nothing else to work with, just that one single call
Hmm.
then, without
Yeah.
question. There's nothing else. Nothing
Well,
after the murder,
we don't
nothing.
know because they requested Becky's phone records, I believe, on the 18th, and they
Yeah.
wanted September 1st through then, right? So they got those records uh, through only the 18th, and then later they realized they didn't get the voicemails, so then they filed a second request a couple weeks or a week or so later,
Yeah.
and they asked for the voicemail, but they only asked for the voicemails, and that's when we
Yeah.
found out that they couldn't have access. That the voicemails were gone because Tiffany had canceled the account. Um, so like we don't know. This interview happened on the 27th, uh, so like it could have been on the 19th. It doesn't seem like it
Yeah.
when he says a couple weeks. We don't know because we don't have those phone records.
Yeah. And shout out to Caroline for posting about that as well. Not a question, but that miss by the investigators. And Caroline on the Facebook follow-up post beautifully outlined kind of what you said. She gets into specifics about when the warrant was submitted, and then realizing they needed those voicemail messages, and this sort of potential for a hole to be formed where information could be going instead of it going to us, where there's
Right.
that gap, without knowing. I'll read Sue's next, but shout out to Sue and Kathy and Lucy and Josh, folks really trying to again drill down into definitive information about when the call happened and all of that. Sue says, can we pinpoint when exactly the identities of the victims were released to the public? Garrett mentions it may have been the Thursday before this week of the 27th when he heard that Becky was one of the victims. So it could have been a week and a half ago when Bob got the crazy call the day after the murders.
So it was the earliest I've seen where there was a newspaper article where they said the bodies have been identified, or at least Becky's body had been identified. Actually, was on the 27th when it came out, but in the articles before that, it was kind of implied, like so, like is an article like if you read the article, it still says they haven't identified the bodies and da da da, but there's pictures in the articles of Becky, John, and Vicky, and the three people that live there. So it was you could read that paper, say on the 21st, and it seems like those are the three that were killed, but they weren't positively identified. On the 27th is when the newspaper article came out, and if memory serves, that was the one that said that Becky's body had been identified. I don't think all three had been identified at that point. And I also do want to point out. So when we were doing our kind of pre-show on YouTube, listener Casey had done a super chat and threw out a theory about that he thinks that the killer
Could be a
was.
she. Casey could be a he or a she.
Oh, right, yeah.
FYI.
They said that they believe their theory is that the killer was in the red truck and that the accomplice was hiding in the desert. We had a little bit of a, but they had just pointed out that they thought the show was going when they had sent that, so I wanted to make sure we brought that up. And I don't think that's a bad theory at all. I mean, the timing does work out that red truck could be involved.
Yeah.
But not really that it could be involved, like leaving the scene immediately, but like if it was like parked down the road, because I still maintain that all of those neighbors converge. I think Becky's body was lit on fire as the neighbors were converging on the scene.
Right.
In which case, like if a car was leaving there, certainly they would have said, and we saw a car leaving,
Right.
which none of them did, but I could certainly see the red truck being parked down like on Palm Canyon Drive as the getaway car, and the accomplice leaving like through the desert or something like that. But I
Well,
just
yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
and the way Casey put it, I also kind of inferred that could mean that the truck driver left the scene maybe even earlier, and then there was one person left, and that person hid in the desert. So there doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily require two people to be there right up till the moment that the neighbors are
exactly.
showing up.
Yeah, somebody
Yeah,
else could have left.
yeah,
So we can
absolutely.
back into these. I just wanted to make sure we did, because Casey did a super chat to get that in.
No, for sure. Okay, so yeah, shout out also to Eris, who continued the conversation that we're having now, about when the public knew. Tracy says, I know others have asked this on the Facebook this week, but is there any way to find this guy and ask him for an interview? Did anyone do any kind of background check on him?
I don't see anything else in the file about him. It's something that I have on my list. I thought about it, and I just kind of haven't done it, but I may reach out to him to see I can if he can share anything. I'm not super confident now, all these years later, that he's getting, because really what we need to know is, did you look at the phone records, or what was the date? Like, did it happen the 19th? Like, Jake in the YouTube chat broke down the exact times when Becky's phone records were pulled, which was from the 1st through the 18th at 11:39 p.m., which is 54 pages of phone records. And I kind of breezed by it, but just to make clear what happened. So then later they did file another request for those voicemails, but the request, and that's what Carolina was talking about too, that the request very specifically said they only want the voicemails. They didn't pull the rest of the phone records from the 18th up till when the phone was canceled. They only requested the voicemail records.
Got it.
But as far as interviewing Bob, yeah, that's one of the things that is on my list. And Terry, thank you for that. And I see that I don't want to broadcast that, what you just
Got
super
it.
chatted.
Thanks, Terry. Great. So Claire wants some clarification. Oh boy, I wish I wouldn't have said Claire and clarification, because now it seems like it was an intentional pun, and now I've drawn a circle around it. But Claire wanted to just come back to this idea of, there's this moment in the conversation with Bob where he says, I bet it would have been easy to get me. We were probably at the top of each other's phone address books in our phone because our names start with B, but then
Right.
it almost sounded like he was suggesting that maybe they could be on each other's speed dial or something. So Claire was just looking for some clarification there. Is that really do we think that's what he was saying, or was he just kind of saying like our names start at the top of the alphabet, so maybe
The
I'm
way
not
the
sure
way
what he was getting at.
the way I understood it, well, that's the way I took it, was that because your contacts are stored alphabetically in the phone, or well, they still are, but even back then, other than just like the speed dial ones. But if you go into your contacts, that since both their names start with B, that they would. That's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
I
And
certainly didn't get the impression from him that he thought that they were like so close she would be on the speed dial. He said like he hadn't talked, he talked to her occasionally,
right.
like like months in between.
And Caroline says Garrett says that he thinks the call he made to Bob S. was probably made the 21st. So that's why I'm so frustrated that they didn't ask for the additional logs when they did the second warrant on the phone logs. Um, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tracy points out, why would it matter where Bob Shelley was when he got the call? It felt like a weird question for Leclerc to ask since he said that he was driving at the time. Yeah, I mean, is that a tactic to sort of
Yeah.
help refresh someone's general memory? Like, put yourself back where you were.
Yeah, that's actually one of the few things that Leclerc did that like I would have done the same thing. And you probably heard me do that when I interview people, especially if we're thinking about dates and times. Like I'll ask questions like, okay, if you think about because your memories, that all of your senses kind of attached to your memories, so you'll
Hmm.
do things, like cognitive interviews where you're like, okay, close your eyes, think back to the time. Was it dark out? What did the sky look like? I did it with like David Jacoby when we were trying to figure things out sometime
Yeah,
out with him. Like what in I'm like, okay, so you're standing at the pipe. Tell me what that looked like. Because
right,
it's useless to say what time was it. But
right.
if he can tell me, like in his case, he's like, it was getting dark, but it wasn't dark. Like I could see across the creek, but or the bayou, but nothing was clear. Like it was kind of blurry. Like it was that kind of dark. The sky looked kind of purple. And then we can use that and go back to like historical weather data. It's the same thing. So, he says, when was the call? I don't remember, a couple of weeks ago. Well, do you remember where you were going? It's not that he cares where he's at, but that may be something that could jog something loose. Like he could be like, where was I going? You know what? I was on my way to Costco. That's right. That's
Yes,
I was going to Costco because I was getting plates for my kid's graduation party. So that had to have been this day, something like that is what you're hoping for.
right. There's also some conversation on the follow up and possibly on the Facebook page proper about this coincidence or not that Bob is another Robert.
Yeah.
That Bob Shelley is a Robert. So, Kim had brought it up, wondering if that could be someone thinking they were calling Robert. Not that that casts any blame on Robert, but that it
Yeah.
could be some sort of a prank, or, Veronica thought too that maybe that's like a way to sort of throw shade towards Robert in some way. So people wondering if there's any conclusion to be drawn about the parallel in names.
I read that, and at first I thought that's, it's intriguing, but then, I mean, I would seriously doubt no one called Robert Bob. And I can't like I can't imagine this weird like formality where Becky meets a guy named Bob and then she saves his number as Robert because that's his government name. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah, yeah,
so yeah, it's now could it be that someone else was like, oh, let's call Robert, and they see a Bob and they just think, well, Robert's Bob. That's possible. But
mm,
but it's just we have so much. The whole thing's weird,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, like we're talking about all these details, but let's go back to the fact that someone other than Becky
yeah.
called someone from Becky's phone and
But
said,
before she had passed.
"Yeah," and
I
and
mean,
says, "We killed her. Do you have to worry about her? We killed her, or whatever he said." Like, forget, besides all these little, like, just that fact, even if it was a joke or a prank, like, what
right.
is that? I don't
What
understand it.
is that?
Yeah.
What is that? It's very strange. It's very strange.
Mhm.
I mean, I definitely was going through trying to figure out if, because he thought it was a prank at the time or because he didn't think as much of it then, I was sort of like running through my mind, like, what else could they have said that he even gave himself permission to think at the time? Like, oh, it kind of sounded like they said we killed her, but obviously that's not what they said. So maybe it was something I misheard. Like, I was trying to think of what else sounds like that someone would have said in that
Yeah.
sort of context. It's just all very strange.
Yeah, because it's also
I
weird
got
that
nothing.
he was like, they're probably kidding. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
I,
I'm sure I would have drawn that conclusion also. I just would have been like, because he's a lot older, which actually brings us to, and I see some comments about this on Facebook, but you were careful to say at the beginning of the episode that you didn't really read much into it, and that it seemed, like these were straight shooters who were really just trying to help in any way they could. But we did have a couple of folks say, why would he say he's her guardian angel? Folks were, KB, for example, and some of y'all in the chat now are saying, like, what was he, an actual guardian angel? Like, that's actually a thing that you can do as a volunteer position, or
Yeah, a few
what's that
listeners
all about?
had pointed out there's a couple of things. There's like a Guardian Angels like motorcycle club, and then there's like a Guardian Angels program that a few people had talked about that
Yeah,
is like a volunteer thing where but like, so we don't know the guy, right? Like,
yeah,
is it just a turn of phrase that he uses? Like again, I can't stress this enough. The whole situation
it's
is
weird.
incredibly weird.
Yeah,
It's so strange. I don't I don't have the answer to that. Someone did Casey in the chat had asked, like, how do we know that the call was from Becky's phone? All we know is him saying it. We don't know for sure. He said he received the call from Becky's phone, and when we went back and looked at the phone records, there was indeed a call from Becky's phone to his phone. So I mean, we can't 100% say that's the call that he's talking about, but there's some confluence there, right? So
yeah,
when he says on the 27th, I think it was a couple weeks ago. Well, it turns out it was like 3.5 weeks before is when that call happened. It could have been that call, but yeah, we don't know that. But it's an interesting, it would be an interesting coincidence if he said he hadn't talked to her in months, and then she called him out of the blue, and that happens, and we see a call
yeah.
from her to him. And Sam Casey's busy in the chat today, because they also said that they think maybe he meant that just he loves her, like I'm her guardian angel, that he loves her.
That's
Like, I don't
definitely how
know.
I took it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
For me, thinking about, and again, I know that putting yourself in someone's shoes or saying I was this kind of person only goes so far. It's not necessarily particularly useful, but we are also experiential like people, and so I don't know, when I think about being a teenager at that age who's she's clearly very open with them. She's talking about kind of stuff she's going through. It's a place she pops into when she's done with her class. Whatever the intention, I just could see a scenario in which a guy felt protective, like whether it's whatever the motivation is, or as simple as that there's just a sense of like, yeah, I feel protective towards this kid or this young lady or whatever.
yeah,
She's, I don't know. I that didn't bother me, but I totally understand exactly why it would bother everyone. I just, for whatever reason, it didn't bother me because it seemed like I could see myself
yeah.
putting myself in that situation where I'm that girl, and that that a guy's
I could
like,
think of a
I'm
dozen
I'm looking out
people.
for this kiddo. Like,
Yeah,
don't
I
don't
could think of a
don't
dozen
fuck with her.
people in my life, especially some older folks that I know in my life that would absolutely say something like, "Well, I'm her guardian angel. I'm her,"
Right.
like, especially, and then there's always like people that in cases and things like this where it's just like they want to be involved, they want to be important, they want to show their, who knows.
Well, yeah, that was something that Tony actually brought up, was, saying, in high profile crimes, people sometimes offer made up tips. Did you have any spidey sense? Was there any reason for you to think personally that this might have been a red herring and that it wasn't even entirely real?
Again, the fact that we find that call on September 5th on our phone records gives it certainly some credence to me, and
Yeah.
it would be super odd to, like, it would be a very strange thing to just make up complete, out of whole cloth, that, oh, by the way, that call is when, and then make up this whole story. But again, one more time, the entire situation is very strange, so who knows.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could say that the Facebook follow-up post cracked open a ton of information, and I know you were interested in hearing everyone's thoughts about it, but that I think everybody feels as stumped as you. So I don't really have more. I have something that's kind of a little more unrelated that we can jump to from Chris.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's doesn't seem like law enforcement felt like there was anything they could really hold on to and pursue there either. But
I just
based
wish
on
they
this case in the
documented
past, I don't
stuff
know. Yeah,
better. Like, because, like, I want to believe that at least at some point Leclerc got with him and was like, "Let me see the phone record," or that he called
Right.
and was like, "Hey, I checked my phone records. The call was on this date and time."
Right.
And that very well may have been the case, and they've been like, "Oh, well, that was before she was killed." So they but like there's not, at least that I found, there's nothing documented about that. So like we just get left with these questions all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Chris says, I'm wondering about the length of the jury deliberation. I've heard a good rule of thumb is 1 day of deliberation per week of trial. So for a 6-week trial, this goes beyond this measure. However, we have 2 defendants, 3 victims, multiple charges, first degree, second degree, manslaughter, maybe 9 charges to consider. There's been no indication the jury was deadlocked or anything. The jury reached 5 guilty verdicts. It was a circumstantial case with lots to consider. It doesn't feel like a super long deliberation. Lots to discuss, not necessarily that some were holdouts that eventually switched votes.
Well, I certainly, there's people there that still think that the alternate juror that sent the email was not actually an alternate juror, but we know for a fact that she was. There there were holdouts. They the original vote was split down the middle, and then there was 10 days. And I don't know. I've never heard of there's a rule of thumb for how long a deliberation takes. I don't know where that rule of thumb comes from. To me, like 10 days, that's 2 full weeks of sitting talking about the evidence. And it did, like, you had 6 people, according to her, that voted not guilty, and then over the course of those 10 days slowly started to come around. And then of course usually that's what happens in a jury room, is once one side has a clear majority, then it's kind of, whether it's open or it's implied, there's a pressure that starts to get put on you. Like I've been
Right.
in juries where this has been the case, where it's like, there's 10 people are saying guilty and 2 people are saying not guilty, and then you get to a point where people are just frustrated. They're like, "Dude, we just want to go home, and you guys are holding us up." Um, but yeah, I don't. It's all perspective. What's a long deliberation? What's not? I don't. Like I said, I've never heard of any rule of thumb for how many days per day of trial you have. I mean, we've seen trials that have, you know, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but like the O.J. Simpson case went on for how many months,
Yeah.
and the verdict came back, if I remember correctly, pretty damn quickly,
Right.
for not guilty. And we've seen trials that have gone for weeks and months, and guilty verdicts have come in a day or so. I don't think there's any kind of rule of thumb. So I mean, if you don't think 10 days was a long deliberation, then for you it's not. To me, 10 days is a long time, and it made sense when we saw the alternate jurors email that was it. They started off split right down the middle, and ultimately they decided that because once they requested statements, to look again at the statements that Robert and Christian had made, and we're comparing that to the cell phone evidence, what we know now is the flawed cell phone evidence, and they determined that their statements didn't line up with the cell phone evidence, and it seemed like that's what ultimately led to the conviction.
Mm. Amanda in the chat says, have all of Becky's calls now been organized and reconciled from the dates available?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sure. Amanda says, have all of Becky's calls been organized and reconciled from the dates available?
I'm going to cough one more time. Sure, Kelly can clean all this up so that you only ask the question once and I answer it once.
Interesting. It
Oh, Jesus
feels
Christ.
like you're
Choke on my
coughing
water.
to this question.
Yeah, choked on my water. Um, so it's if all the calls have been identified.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I believe they all have been, for all of the records. There's a few that are like, we've figured out who the name is, but we don't really know much about. Like there was a person that's like, well, we found this name, and she's one of the names of the people that were on Becky's Facebook, but we don't really know them. We really, the deep dive that we did into everybody was like the weekend of the murders.
Hmm.
But there are definitely other names on there. But and nothing. I'll say this: nothing else that we saw is any kind of red flags, especially because this crime happened. It doesn't seem like she had a phone conversation with somebody 2 weeks before, has zero contact with them for the next 2 weeks, and then they show up at the house and kill the whole family. It just doesn't seem like a likely thing. And Chris, who sent that comment,
Mhm.
um, in the chat, said that the OJ verdict came in less than 4 hours, which is that sounds right. I remember it was very quick. That verdict came back.
Chris also says it was Jim Clemente who said 1 day per week.
Oh, could
I
be.
get that confused with when you are supposed to have jet lag, to be honest with you, because I've also heard like 1 day of jet lag per week you were gone or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, hard to know unless you're inside the room, but
yeah. Personally, I think they're, from what we've seen, like just a couple examples we gave, they're all different. Like,
right.
I guess also, what does rule? I'll have to ask Jim next time I talk to him. What does rule of thumb mean? Like,
Yeah.
is that an average, or what does that? What does that even mean?
Yeah. That's all I have.
Okay. So we are a little short. It was a short episode, so we don't have a lot of questions, but we will take a couple minutes if anybody has anything in the YouTube chat they want, their questions that they're dying to ask. And if not, then we'll go ahead and call it a night. It is for those of you that are hearing this on Friday. We record this on Tuesday evening, which we don't usually do in the evenings. And Kelly, there's going to be a little bit of downtime here while I wait for the chat to catch up. So we want to clean this up so it flows smoothly. Okay, Casey's, and again, this is not for the show, but Casey says it's the exact same rule for Janet for deliberations and jet lag.
I'm telling you, I think that is what I mean. I think that is the same amount that I've heard about jet lag. So Casey's not wrong
Yeah.
in terms of what I've heard. In terms of what I've heard,
What was it? What, 1 day per week?
it's like however long you were gone, like per week, you're going to have a day of really bad jet lag.
Yeah, but for the one for the trial deliberations, they said.
Yeah, like every 1 week of trial, there's 1 day of deliberations or something.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get back into this. So Kelly, we're back in the back in showtime. All right. So real quick, we got a couple things in the YouTube chat. Emily wants to know about our true crime lives. And yeah, we still plan on doing those, but
Yeah.
as you know, that things
we started doing it. Yeah, we started doing it right as things were getting the very possibly busiest they could be with my travel schedule and your life schedule, and so the spirit is willing. It's just the time hasn't been there.
Yeah, so we will do more of them, but again, like Janet, the reason we're doing this in the evening is Janet is flying out first thing tomorrow morning on her usual day for other. Was it another con you're going to?
Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to New York after that from Pennsylvania. But I'm I'm finding a place that I can record on Wednesday next week from New York.
Yeah, so probably nothing this week or probably next week, but yeah, we'll do them again. Because believe me, I think I speak for both of us. We love doing them.
Oh yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah. It's also a good chance for us to catch up with each other. So we'll let you know. We'll keep everybody.
And thanks for caring enough to ask. That's really nice, you guys.
Yep. And then Ben just wanted to say, I know the later follow-up was due to other circumstances, but thanks for the later one. It was nice to finally join follow-up from Australia. Well, thanks for joining us all the way from Australia, Ben. And with that, we've got some super chats we'll get to after that we always do after we're done recording. But as far as the follow-up goes, we don't want to bore you guys with any of our nonsense. So we're going to wrap the follow-up up for now. Thank you guys very much. Make sure you tune in Sunday. So this Sunday's episode is going to be like the summary of everything that we've covered as far as the case against Robert and Christian, the case for the how they were convicted, and where I believe the state failed, and I think that they, why I believe that Robert and Christian are very much innocent. It will be a summary episode. I haven't written it yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a banger.
It's going to be great.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
So that'll be coming up on Sunday, and then after that, we're going to get into our alternate suspects. So all of that's coming up. Make sure you tune in on Sunday, and thank you all for joining us both in the YouTube chat and for downloading the episode, and hoping and praying that you're able to download this on Friday and the feed transfer has gone through smoothly. I think that it has.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, everybody. We miss you, Zach. See you next follow-up.
See you guys. All right, so we can stop on our audio record.
All righty.
And then we'll go through the super chat. Thank you, Jennifer, for the super chat. It says, Bob, I PM'd you about quitting vaping.
Oh.
Quenty? Did you mean?
Possibly Quentin?
Maybe.
That's my guess.
But I'll check my PMs, Jennifer. Thank you for
Okay.
that. And thank you for the super chat. And I just missed one. There we go. And Amy Perez just gave us a super chat and says, "Glad you guys are back." Thank you, Amy. Her name's Amanda. If you super chat us, then we will say your name incorrectly
Oh no, Amanda.
on the
Thanks,
feed,
Amanda.
Amanda. But thank you very much for the super chat, and we're glad to be back. And if for any of you that are on Patreon and watch our pre-show hour, you'll see how excited Janet and I get that we just this is since we live 2,000 miles apart. This is our chance to hang out. Janet is one of my bestest buddies, and I get to hang out with her. Only yes for Quentin. Thanks. I'll check that out, Jennifer. Yeah, so we enjoy doing this too, and we'll give a couple more minutes if anybody else has any super chats there that they're dying to get off their chest. Oh, Danielle here. Danielle jumped in late. Dang it. She knew she should have paid attention to the notification. Terry can't wait till Sunday. First time I had enough time to join. Who's that? Oh, that's Richard. Thanks, Richard, for joining us.
Nice.
Richard's one we see on the Facebook fan page a lot. I haven't seen
Yeah.
him here on the chats.
I know. Thanks all of you folks for posting on this one because again, there was just a lot of questions, but kind of all the same. We all had a similar question, so I appreciate all of you who posted this week, and I had to kind of consolidate because everyone was kind of talking about similar things. But
Yeah, I was looking.
it's
at
great to
the-
have that.
Yeah, I was looking at the timing of it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty short one." And I was like, "Well, it was a 25-minute episode, so I guess that's about right to have a 25-minute follow-up." That makes sense.
It's hard when you don't know where to put it. It's everybody has the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, Gigi, thank you so much for the super chat. That's very sweet. No no
Gigi.
comment, just a super chat.
All I know is that I love quilts, and so I suspect that maybe I need to get a quilt from Gigi if it's Gigi Quilts.
Oh, there you go. Go check out Gigi Quilts. I'm guessing Etsy could be, or where are we at? Gigi, tell us in the chat where Janet can get a Gigi quilt.
If I can afford a Gigi quilt, quilts are expensive, and they should be.
Are you a quilter, or
am I?
Or you just like quilts?
No, I love quilting. My neck can't sustain. It's getting really depressing, but like I can't look down that long because of my neck injury. So that's like a thing that feels like a superhero's work to me when people do quilts. It.
Got the call after Becky. Okay. Jennifer says she was confused by some people saying Bob got the call after Becky was killed. I think, Jennifer, the reason for that was because of Garrett's interview. Because when they interviewed Garrett first, he said he thought that the call came a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And then Bob said a couple weeks ago. And then the phone records show 3 weeks ago.
And then there's a possibility of maybe there being something that did come later that somehow we didn't see. Yeah.
And Ben from Australia says rule of thumb is 1 minute of follow-up for every 90 seconds of original episode. Yes, Ben, that is the podcasting rule. And you know what? That's industry wide. And you're exactly right.
Very funny.
Yeah. And Gigi says she is paralegal by trade and quilter by night.
Love it. That is superheroism right there. Alter ego.
So Becky, my lovely wife, absolutely loves or excuse me, absolutely hates crafting. Like we'll avoid, like when her friends are all like, let's go to one of those like wine and canvas parties. She's like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. Somehow she got into this like diamond, what they call diamond painting. If you know what I'm talking about. They're like, they're almost like a color by number, but they're like this picture and there's some kind of sticky thing. And then there's all these different colors of these little jewels. And then they use this little thing and they stick each little jewel and there's thousands of them.
Oh boy. Okay.
And I came home the other day and she was doing, I'm like,
crafting.
And that lasted 2 days. I was like, okay. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. Oh no, I'm into this. I love this. It's been sitting on the table for weeks since then. And Terry, thank you so much for the super chat. Been missing T&J. So glad you all are back. Thank you for the kind words and for the super chat. We appreciate that. And Caroline, again with it. Caroline, you can't volunteer and then also super chat.
Yeah,
it makes
Caroline,
me feel bad.
come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Caroline says, I'm ready when the alternate suspect episode is going to be. Yeah. So Caroline is the one that she's that like some of the areas that I have from the case file that I'm going to be digging into when we do the alternate suspects. Like Caroline has been like messaging me because she has like taken that and like researched the people and researched backgrounds, and she's done a ton of research on this stuff. So Caroline is, I've been promising her for, what do we say, Caroline, 6 months that I'll be like, when we get to that stuff, you're the go-to,
Awesome.
and we're there. So she's got a ton of information that she's going to be sharing, and she's also been working with Jake, that's in the chat. The two of
Nice.
them have been working a lot together on a lot of that stuff.
It's gonna make a lot of people very happy. You know, we always, every follow up, except for this one, it seems, post, we have somebody rightly, understandably wanting to know, like, who did this?
Yeah. Oh, and I've got, I don't want to say the name yet, but someone who lives in Pinyon Pines reached out to me through Instagram and then has texted me, and he he keeps telling me, he's like, next time you come back, I want to meet with you and I want to introduce you
Oh,
to one of the people that's on the alternate suspects list.
okay.
On the list I have, that I think is someone that is worth looking into, and he, uh, this person, like, knows this person. They think that theory is. I don't think they have any like legit evidence,
Uh-huh.
but I think they've heard things
Yes.
and know. Yeah. So I want to get him on the phone. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to fly out there to do
Yeah.
that, but it may end up warranting a quick trip out to California, um, to meet this person. But there's some exciting stuff going on, and there's another person who is, interestingly, um, he's not a journalist, but he's another person that was thinking about doing a podcast on this case and had done some research and made some connections. And I've talked to you about this, Janet, too. And I talked to him, and and it's one of the, like, it's not on the record, but like, he's talked to these and he's shared the information with me, and it's
Yeah.
very interesting. And there's a connection between that and what this other person is telling me. So, like, if maybe I can get, because I want to get something on the record. So,
Yeah.
um, some interesting stuff is coming. And with that, I think that I'm caught up. Let me make sure that I didn't miss any super chats. No, I think we are good to go. So I think we're going to go ahead and end this stream. Uh, uh, Casey, this is more than one person involved, which means a third person also knows. I very much agree with you. And Casey had mentioned this is his first time doing this. Casey, you nailed it. Very active in the chat, made some great points, and so we appreciate it. And the super chats. And with that, I think that we're going to. I keep slowly saying going. I don't. Listen, when this is over, my hang with Janet is
I
over,
know.
and I don't want
I
to do it.
know.
But sure, she's got more important things to do. So, all right.
Well, no, I just have the, I'm just going to go stare at my suitcase and worry that I'm forgetting a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So that'll be
Long
fun.
trip, 2 places. That'll be fun. So how
Yeah.
long are you gonna be gone?
Till the 17th.
The 17th, and tomorrow's the
And I feel like
7th?
I just got back. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long trip.
June's crazy. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna end this thing. So goodbye, chat.